I feel like shit.
Monday, happy days. Wednesday, happy days.
It's just one of those
happy days. The weekend comes, let's not go out.
It's just one of those days where you don't want to wake up. Everything is everybody sucks. You don't really know why, but you want to justify ripping someone's head off. No human contact, and if you interact, your life is on contract. Your best bet is
Knock it off, you scum fuckhead.
it's just one of those days. It's just one of those.
Happy days.
It's just one of those.
Happy days.
It's just one of those
Happy
days.
The weekend comes, let's not go out. Ready to extend.
It's just one of those days, feeling like a freight train. First one you complain, please with the blood stain. Damn right, I'm a maniac. You better shoot, cause I'm fucking up your program. And if you're stuck up, you just locked up. Next in line to get fucked up. Your best bet is to stay away, motherfucker. It's just,
I'm losing my cool.
it's all about it.
Happy days.
It's just one of those,
Happy days.
it's just one of those
Happy
days.
The weekend comes, let's not go out. Ready to extend.
Feel like shit. My suggestion is distance. Right now I'm dangerous. Right now I'm dangerous.
Something's happening to the farm.
My day keeps going this way and this way.
I'm gonna pop you one so you'll start playing games.
Give me something great. Give me something great. I hope you know I got a chainsaw. A chainsaw. A motherfucking chainsaw.
What?
So come and get it.
What we got here is a case of mistaken identity, you know? See, now this here is
Not Robert.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chief Moody, and welcome to episode 103 of the Mood of the Nation podcast. Are you all surprised to see me? I wasn't expecting to do this stream, but I'll explain that in a short moment or two. Anyway, thank you all very much for coming along this evening. I know it's a bit weird for me to do a stream on a Tuesday evening because normally I would stream either Thursdays or Sundays. I'll explain that in a short moment or two. Before I get into that, let me see who's in the chat just now. And I do see, of course, a lot of familiar faces as per usual. For instance, we have Gammon Sandwich. How you doing, Gammon? Thank you very much for watching the Mood of the Nation. We have Roscoe in the chat. Thank you very much, Roscoe, for watching Mood of the Nation as per usual. Keith Grant is here. Thank you very much for watching Mood of the Nation as per usual. We also have the lovely English Rose in the chat. Thank you very much as usual for watching the Mood of the Nation. I definitely say, don't know about Keith, but maybe the first three I've read out, maybe hardcore fans, I guess you would say, but that's beside the point. Anyway, the Earl of Stair is with us. Thank you very much for watching the Mood of the Nation. Stephen Dalton. Hello, Stephen. Thank you very much for watching the Mood of the Nation. Let's see, Ossidan Advocate. Thank you very much for watching Mood of the Nation, as per usual. We also have, of course, Rory Herbert in the chat. Thank you very much for watching the show, Rory. Thank you very much for being here. English Weather is with us. Thank you very much for watching the Mood of the Nation. The Woodlander is with us. Thank you very much for watching the Mood of the Nation podcast, Woodlander. Thank you very much for being here. Sir Thomas Lipton is with us. Thank you very much for watching Mood of the Nation. Toby Radley is with us. Thank you very much for watching the Mood of the Nation. Bill Athling is with us. Thank you very much, Bill, for coming along, as per usual. Appreciate you being here. GP Geordie, thank you very much for watching the Mood of the Nation. And I think, am I up to date with the chat? The Duke of Bedford, thank you very much for watching the Mood of the Nation. How you doing? Kingdom of Villain is with us. Thank you very much for watching the Mood of the Nation. And I think, yeah, that's me all up to date with the chat. Perfect. Unless more people come along, because I do see 18 people watching the show already, which is excellent, which is really good to see. Oh, sorry, 19. Sorry, my bad. Thank you very much for coming along this fine Tuesday evening. Well, for me, it was sunny earlier on, but it looks like it's going to be a thunderstorm coming along later on, which is going to be fantastic, of course. But hey, we're indoors, so that should be no problem whatsoever. Jody look weird. I'm glad you brought up Jody Gammon Sandwich because I know for a fact on a Tuesday, Jody normally streams on a Tuesday at 7 until, was it 8 or 9, I think it is? Well, depending on how she's feeling, then that she would normally do an hour long stream or 2 hour long stream. Well, as of late, she I think there was two reasons. I know she posted this on her Telegram page, but basically the gist of it was she needed just a little bit of a break from doing streaming. Of course, understandably so, because she's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, especially being with or working for both PA London and PA Eastern, if I'm not mistaken. She has been trying to do a stream here and there. I think recently, from what I've been told, it's nothing even bad or anything like that at all, so don't worry about that. But I think the internet she uses is not working at the moment, so this gives her an opportunity to maybe take that small break. Now, I'm not entirely too sure whether or not if it's only just this week or next week, but basically on Sunday night during my appearance on Ragnar Iron Spears' stream, which, by the way, I hope everyone enjoyed that appearance. Well, not just appearance, but enjoyed that stream also with myself, Ragnar Iron Spear, and 42. During that stream, Jodie messaged me asking if I was able to maybe cover her for Tuesday evening slot. Again, I'm not too sure whether it would be for only this week or maybe next week as well. But I just basically said to her that yeah, I was free during that time frame anyway. So yeah, that explains why I'm doing a stream this evening. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to do a stream on Thursday or Sunday, as this would be like covering that type of idea. No, I'll still do a stream. I'm doing a stream tonight. Still doing a stream on Thursday night at 7, maybe 7:30, depending on what time I finish at work. And then, of course, I'll do a stream on Sunday at 5 p.m. So you could see this week, maybe next week. I'm not entirely too sure on that. You'll be getting maybe like a third or extra episode regarding to that. So yeah, there we have it. So of course, Jodie deserves to have that much needed break, and that way you get more content from myself or more episodes of Mood of the Nation. So that explains why I'm here at the moment. And I do see there's 24 people watching the show already, which is excellent. Really good stuff. English Bulldog is with us. Thank you very much for watching. I'll just go back to the chat real quick. Kitchen Skillet is with us. Thank you very much for watching the Mood of the Nation. Kenny Hinney is with us. Thank you very much for watching Mood of the Nation. And Streaky Bacon is with us. Inshallah, Streaky Bacon. Wow, this is a surprise, Chief Moody. I know. You can thank Jodie for that, because, of course, as I said, she needed to take a bit of time off. And of course, that would mean that you would get an extra fix of Mood of the Nation. So there we go. Do I get paid overtime for this shift or Thursday? Let's see. Ryder Iron Spear, Chief Moody, I'd like you back at some on some Sunday. Yeah, of course we can. I'm sure we can arrange that. I'm sure we can message back and forth on either Twitter or maybe Telegram, but I'm sure we can figure something out in the near future. Whether you want me back on your show or maybe sometime you want to come on my show for a bit, and then we'll definitely see from there. Another announcement, folks. I don't know if it might be early to announce, but I see that Sai has already posted it on his YouTube channel anyway. But for those that don't know, PA Talk is going to be live tomorrow at 9 p.m. as it usually does on a Wednesday. And for the first time ever, I'm going to be featured as a guest on PA Talk tomorrow, which would be episode 52, which I actually cannot wait for that. Now, I know people might be saying, well, technically you were already on PA Talk that one time when you were doing the Burns Night episode, which that is true. I'm not down that for a second. I think, though, looking back on it, as a good episode that it was, I wasn't really much of a guest. I was more like a... how would I describe it? Maybe like a bit of a helper type of idea, or maybe a Santa's little helper. Because obviously being a Scottish themed episode, and Sai wanted as many Scottish people on the show, and of course me being Scottish, also being a content creator, he thought maybe if I would be a perfect fit for the show as well. So there we go. But tomorrow, for technically the second appearance on PA Talk, but the first time I would be featured as a full-length guest on the show, which I really cannot wait for that for tomorrow. And that's at 9 p.m. A sidekick. Yeah, that may be an accurate way of pointing it out, Keith. Yeah, definitely so. An elf in disguise. Oy vey. Shut it down. But yeah, I'll be on the show as a guest for PA Talk, episode 52, tomorrow night at 9 p.m. So definitely write it down your calendar or whatever, but definitely appear for that show. I'll also post it on, if they post it on Telegram, I'll share it on Telegram as well. So we'll definitely keep that in mind. That will be either later on tonight or maybe tomorrow, but I'm not too sure with that. So anyway, speaking of PA talk, I just did a side there. Anyway, let's get right into the show just now. So tonight's show will be a bit different than what I normally do. Normally what I do is I would cover recent news that came out in terms of articles and whatnot, and I would just kind of read over them and give my nationalist take on them. But I don't want this type of episode to be like that. Instead, I might want to do, like, from time to time, I might want to do something entirely different. Maybe talk about culture, talk about history, talk about stuff that's going on when it comes to like media stuff or anything like that at all. So I thought, to kickstart off that idea for today's episode, I thought I would maybe talk about art. More specifically, say modern art and slash architecture. Well, when I say modern art, it's a bit kind of awkward with that, because people will say, well, when you say modern art, do you mean like actual modern art or like postmodern art or any of the stuff that we're seeing at the moment here, which is basically not only lefty garbage, but it's just completely meaningless artwork, what we're seeing at the moment, which I'll definitely cover them later on. Firstly, what I want to do is I want to cover architecture with that. Now, before we get into looking into that stuff, all of that modern art, like that wallpaper, yeah. I mean, I would say this is better than all the modern art we're seeing at the moment. But anyway, yeah, that's a perfect way of describing it, Rory. Degenerate art. Yeah, we'll definitely have a look into that later on. Now, I want to give you guys a bit of backstory, or maybe a bit of Chief Moody lore, if you will, when it comes to my interest in art and design. So I would say my interest in art maybe first began back in high school, I think. I remember at the time, I wasn't really too interested in high school. Looking back on it, I was just not a fan of it. The only only two subjects I remember I was really good at were both art and music, which is quite odd because, again, looking back into it, especially when it comes to music, I wasn't really interested. It was just more of a case for me. It was just going with the flow, but then surprisingly, I would get good marks out of it. I'm like, what the hell was that all about? But I would say, looking back, again, I'm sorry if I'm sounding like I'm repeating myself here, but I would say, for me anyway, at that time, I felt like the best industry I would work for would maybe the creative industry. So that would be, of course, music or art and design, film, that sort of idea. So by the time it got to the idea of going to further education, whether it be college or uni, of course, for me, I was going to go to college because, again, I didn't really have the qualifications for going to university. Although looking back on it now, probably the best thing that I was never at university, because, of course, seeing with the institutions today, I mean, it's filled to the brim of pure propaganda. So yeah, I went to college instead. So I went to college, but I think that was maybe, I think it's almost like 10 years ago now that I think of it. It was about 2012, 2013, rather about that time frame. And I first started in access to creative industries, because that was like a beginner's point in that. So after you've done that, you can move on to anything after that. So that would be, I think, NC art and design or media, so on and so forth. So I did that. Now at that point, even still, and another thing that my peers would talk to me about is, well, it's great that you're interested in art, but what exactly is it that you want to do with that? Do you want to maybe go into education and maybe teach art and design to pupils, or do you maybe want to do something with like other industries that may have links to art and design or anything like that? And at that point, I never really gave that much of a thought. I just thought, because I was really interested and I thought I was good at it, I thought maybe that would be the best industry to go into. It wasn't until maybe my second year at college where I finally decided, you know what, maybe I'm actually interested in graphic design. So I thought maybe I'd try and push myself for that. So third year, I was focusing on, I didn't get into what grade was it? Was it HND, HNC? No, I think it's HND, graphic design or something like that. But my third year consists of portfolio preparation. So that means you didn't pass your NC art and design to get to the next proper level. But here's a level that's like an in-between type of level for a year. So, and that's where portfolio preparation came in. So you do that, you make more art and design work for it that would give you that extra boost to get to that next level, if you will. So I did that. And then in 2016, that's when I got into, I think it was HMD or HNC, graphic design. Now, I left roundabout, I didn't finish the course. I left roundabout in like late August, maybe early September, if I'm not mistaken, maybe October. And that was because there was a lot of stuff going on at that point in my life where I was like, right, I'm just going to focus on doing some like proper work, and then maybe if everything's all sorted out with that, with your finances and all of that, then maybe I can go back into college. But I never really did. And to be quite frank, I have really no interest in going back to college for anything like that, especially when it comes to art and design. Because I remember my fourth, you could say my final year being there, there was a lot of stuff that was kind of bothered me a little bit in terms of like the politics. So during that time, we would have, this isn't like just within my fourth year, throughout the years of college, we would have like a learning session of, I think it's like, so it's not like social studies or anything like that at all, but it does link into art and design kind of thing. But it was pretty good back in that time. But I remember in my fourth year at college, there was a point where all the stuff we know about education today with the woke propaganda and the leftists, all stuff and all of that SJWs type of stuff, if you will, it was there, but it wasn't like as bad as what we're seeing currently today. So you could say that I should have maybe stuck by with the college stuff, but I just decided I'm not going to pursue any further because of that. It wasn't as bad as what we're seeing today. It was at that point. It was 2016. It was just maybe it was what we're seeing in America was kind of creeping into Britain. I mean, I know people would say that all that stuff has been going on for like many years, even before then, but at that point, for me, it was just starting to creep in. So I thought, right, I'm not going to bother with that. So looking back, maybe I can actually do something like maybe engineer. Well, I don't know engineering, but maybe something like a trade work type of thing. So that'd be electrician, plumbing. There is something I've been looking into with that. So maybe I might want to, if I have time, of course, I'll definitely have a look into that further. But I think looking back on it now, I think maybe I would be better off maybe learning that type of stuff than maybe do some trade work. I know people have said, well, it's not too late or anything like that at all, especially being your age, being 28 years old. So I'll definitely have a look into that much further and then see how I'll go with that. Because I think that might be a better work field than what I would possibly do for art and design, really. So, and even then, the best places, if you complete everything with that, you get all of the qualifications. The best places, especially here in Scotland, would be places like Glasgow, especially Glasgow, Edinburgh, I think Dundee as well, because I know Dundee is a home place for many like I say comic strips, but comic books like the Dandy. I think maybe the Beano, or I don't know if that's English or the Dandy is from is Scotland, mainly Dundee, because I know there's like a Desperate Dan statue in Dundee. Beano, I don't know if that's Scottish or if that's the English equivalent. I'm not entirely too sure with that, but yeah, that's a bit of Chief Moody lore for you when it comes to that. So now, with that being said, I still have a love and appreciation for art and design. In fact, I'll even say my favorite movement in terms of all the arts movements would be the Renaissance period. And what I'll do is I will share the screen and showcase what I mean by that. Some of you, of course, who know art and design might know this already, but let me just showcase some examples. And let me see if I can get myself here. If I need to, so of course we've got Renaissance art. If I need to maybe increase the screen, if I can't, yeah, that'll be all right. I'll even also check through my phone to see the live feed there, if it's coming off okay with that. Let me see. Yeah, it's about good enough. Yeah, that's fine. Air conditioning engineer or lift engineer, good trades chief. All right, fair enough, Toby. I'll definitely have a look into that and see from there. That sounds like something that could be a good trade with that. Perfect. Sorry, excuse me. Another thing to mention too, just before I move any further, of course, if you don't mind me doing this as well, as I normally do on almost every other show, but if you enjoy my work, you'll see a pinned message within the chat. If you would like to support me financially, of course, you can do so. You can donate through my Ko-fi page or my PayPal link, which is in the description down below. Please don't feel obligated. You have to donate. If you want to donate to me, that's fine. I greatly appreciate your kind generosity. If not, again, that's completely fine. As long as you're watching the show, that's all that matters at the end of the day. So let me get back onto. I just thought I'd point that out just real quick, and then we'll get on to this part here. My favorite art movement being the Renaissance period. Now, of course, what you all might notice here is, of course, there's a lot of very amazing artworks here. In fact, of course, there's one of the famous pieces. I don't know if it's got the name for it here, but obviously I've seen this before. I'm sure people have seen this before. Let me just get a bigger, closer look into it. I'm sure someone in the chat might point out the name of this particular piece, but again, I remember seeing this a lot. That's an example of like Renaissance art right there. Is this the Last Supper? If I'm not mistaken, or maybe something to that effect. It looks like it anyway. But one thing to mention too, when it comes to the Renaissance period, is that now again, I'm not particularly a religious person myself, although it's something I'm just slowly but surely getting into by being a Christian. Even though at that point, when I was an atheist back in my college years, I still would appreciate some of the religious art pieces. Ones in particular that depict Jesus and also Mary carrying Jesus. Now, I'm not too sure if that one was a painting or if it was a statue, but I remember seeing that and I was like, I might be an atheist, but I actually think it's a really good piece of artwork. Let me showcase. That would be the one I'm talking about. I know there's the Mona Lisa there, but that's the one I think I'm referring to. It's the depiction of the aftermath of Jesus being crucified and then Mary carrying his body. I really like that statue a lot. I really do like that one. So any other ones? Again, there's a lot of like religious aspect to the Renaissance period. Again, just beautiful pieces. Of course, there's a famous David, I think it's called, the statue, the Michelangelo's. No, is it? I think the statue's called David, but who is the person who made the art piece? Was it Michelangelo or was it jogs the memory with this, but I don't think it's coming up with the article, which is fantastic. I think it's Michelangelo's David, if I'm not mistaken. Again, please, if I'm wrong in that, please correct me in the chat. That would be greatly appreciated. Here's another piece. I think this one is a more accurate of the Last Supper. I really like this one, where you have Jesus, and of course you have all of his followers beside him, or his is it disciples that they're called? His like followers, again being called the Last Supper. I really like this one a lot, and I think there might be another one, if I'm not mistaken. There's a statue reference again, Last Supper with that one. But I'm pretty sure, I don't know where I've seen this, but I remember seeing there was a painting of Jesus being carried, by Mary. Now, I know I've just showcased the statue, but I remember seeing there was a painting of that, but I'm not too sure if it's accurate to say with that, or maybe it was from a different period of art, but anyway, but there goes a bit of perspective on that, folks, of my favorite art movement. I mean, I did also like Art Deco. I liked Art Nouveau. I think that was the name of it back in my college years as well. There's also, this was something I talked about on the show before, but there's a movement, of course, called Baroque when it comes to architecture. Let me see if I can get stuff like this. Of course, very European based. Of course, you can definitely see this. You would see these types of architectures in Italy. I think France, you might see them as well. But this is just absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning, this. Now, if I even showcased this on the show before, but again, just as appreciation for this type of art, especially something like this. I think this is based in Italy, if I'm not mistaken. Best explanation of the broad architecture, the architecture designs, right? Again, I would just want to know, like, how long would it take people to make these types of statues, especially back in that period? Because that must have taken them forever to build, like an awful long time. I mean, sure, there may be a lot of people involved, but I mean, just the attention to detail, as you can see, if I'll get a better picture like this one here. Yeah, like something like this. I mean, just the amount of detail that went into these is just astonishing. Because again, it must have taken them like forever, maybe years, in fact, to maybe complete these. Absolutely just fantastic stuff. Now then, I'll come back on to here real quick and say this part here. Joe, also I noticed Joe Marsh and Tim Seymour are in the chat as well. So thank you very much for watching Mood of the Nation, guys. 36 people watching the show already. That's excellent. Thank you very much. So you might be wondering, why exactly am I bringing this up? Obviously, the main subject for today's show is about art and also architecture. You could definitely say that. Now, it goes back to the original thumbnail of this particular episode, which is a piece of a building that's from the brutal architecture, or brutalist architecture, if you want to call it that. And why I think it's one of the absolute worst forms of architecture known to man. And I actually do believe, in my opinion, I think brutalism, or brutalist architecture, or brutal architecture, again, whatever you want to call it, has a lot of links to communism, especially in places like Eastern Europe or the Eastern Bloc. I'll definitely showcase that in a moment here when I get my notes up in a moment as an example here. I'll also bring up a piece of, I don't even want to call it like an art piece, but a building that was made in France that's close to, I think it's in Paris, or I think it's the west of Paris, but I'll get to that in a short moment. Let me just post these in the, well, not in the chat, but I'll just post these in the link just now, and then see from here. Modern art and art. Okay, so I got that up. I'll also see if I can open up this as well. I also have an article here that does tie into this idea as well, especially these types of buildings and the Eastern Bloc, because there's quite a lot of history with that. There's definitely a lot of history to this. Let me showcase what I mean by modern art. There's no chance to the chat. Hello, no chance. Now we have IKEA houses. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. But I think, to be honest, seeing these types of designs, you would actually appreciate IKEA a lot more. But I'll showcase what I mean here. So we have here modern art / architecture. This is just examples of these. So some of them might look okay, but I think some of the older buildings you would see in Glasgow or Edinburgh, I think would be like much better. Or even what I've showcased with the Baroque period in Italy, are definitely a lot better. Some of them, like these ones, for example, look pretty sleek. Well, maybe not that one. I'll get to that in a second with the next page here. But it's supposed to be looking very like modern, very futuristic, if you will. But I mean, some people might appreciate this like piece here, which, I mean, if they like it, fair enough. But I just something about it kind of rubs me the wrong way. But no, I'm more old school with this. I tend to appreciate a lot more of the classic architecture. I mean, just like look at this, for example, right? Contemporary Art Center explored architecture and landscapes. So this is like an example of that. I mean, just how is that supposed to look appealing in any way, shape, or form? It just looks atrocious. We can have a look at the website for us, because I'm sure I might have more example of these just now. I actually cannot believe it's 7:30 already. That's crazy. Anyway, let's have a look at this. So there's a bigger image of that building. I think that's what's supposed to be underneath it, which, I mean, even this, like, is that supposed to be like some kind of seating area? So if you want to have a sit down, I mean, you can just sit on those parts or bricks right there. I mean, I don't know if that's supposed to be like comfortable to sit on, but anyway, that's probably me. That's the inside of it, which, I mean, again, it just looks a bit bizarre. It kind of looks a bit odd, but Anyway, I'll move on to this part here. This is what I mean by this is going on to like brutalist architecture. And again, you can kind of see where I'm coming from with this because this just looks absolutely awful. It just looks, compare that to what I've showcased with the Baroque architecture. The Baroque architecture, sorry, just looks so much better. It has a lot of attention to detail. It just looks beautiful to look at. And then compare it to this, and this just looks, it just looks bland and just lifeless. There's no soul to it. You could just tell the people who designed it were just like, yeah, okay, like no any attention to detail whatsoever. There's another example of this. I mean, just look at that. Like what even is that? Famous watercolor artist who still influence the medium today. Like, what is even is that supposed to be? I mean, it kind of looks like a tree almost, but I mean, it just looks really. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Let's see the most. This is why brutalist architecture is more important now than ever. That's a big cope. I mean, just how is that supposed to look appealing? That just looks awful. I mean, maybe some of them look kind of Photoshop. I don't know, but have a look at this. 10 icons of brutalist architecture. Let me see here. From the brewer to the. I'm taking this off here. Barbican. Don't know what that's supposed to be, but anyway. Raw concrete as in its namesake and primary material, brutalism and initial surface in the middle of the 20th century, in part as a quick economical solution to the urban destruction wrought by World War II. Oh yeah, so I forgot to mention when it comes to the brutalist movement or the brutalist architecture. So this was came about in Britain. So this was just after World War II. So of course World War II happened, the war was over, but the country was still going through major trauma with the bombings and all of that. So in order to maybe to restore Britain in terms of the housing problems that were going on at that time, brutalist architecture came into the picture, which is why you see buildings like that in this case. So, and again, it really goes to show the complete design because it was almost like a bit of a, I don't know if this might be the right word to say, but like an afterthought type of idea. But it was just a case of, look, we need buildings to be put into these areas because of the bombings that happen, and we need people needing housing more than ever. So it's just like a case of just build a design for these houses, and then there we go. People have a house to live in. So they didn't really care much about the design itself. As long as it's a house being built, that's all that matters at the end of the day. At first centered in England, the style spread across the world in the following decades, proposing a radical new form of modernism steeped in socialist ideas. Yep, see, there we go. That embrace hard lines and an utilitarian lack of ornamentation, long revealed or reviled, but recently revived. Brutalism is nothing if not striking, with its heavy, imposing buildings that privilege function over form. Here are 10 of the world's most iconic examples of the style. This one looks like to be centered in France. I mean, it's still not great, but at least there's somewhat of a bit of a color to it. I mean, you can kind of see it from the side of the buildings, but even then, it's still like. No, I mean, I would prefer like the classic architecture than that. To be honest with you, I think it's based in France, based on the writing there or the language. The Paul Rudolph Hall, New Haven, Connecticut. So this was completed in 1963. I mean, yeah, I mean, at the moment, I think it looks okay. It doesn't look great. It definitely does have that very imposing look to it. But let me see. Bank of London in South America, Buenos Aires, made in 1966. I mean, I think you might see some kind of building like that before, but it just looks doesn't look very welcoming, does it? It just looks very hostile and just very soulless, to be honest with you. But I think I might have seen that building before. But again, that kind of looks like a prison to me. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's the designs there, or maybe it's like this. I guess these are supposed to be not stairways, but maybe like bridges from one building to another. Um, yeah, just doesn't look really appealing. The Brewer Building in New York City. I'm sure people might have seen that before, but yeah, it doesn't look really appealing. I think I've seen that before. The Barbican in London. This was completed in 1982. So I kind of like this aspect to it, like the plants in the water, but the buildings around it just it looks like something that was lifted right out of what's that film by Kubrick? Is it A Clockwork Orange? I think it was. Where in that film, there's a lot of similar buildings to that, and it's supposed to be like the look of the future. In fact, that was even another reason why these buildings were made to begin with, was because they wanted the buildings to look like that as like a way of like the future, as if this is what the future is going to look like. But of course, looking back at it now, it was definitely like a massive mistake. But which is the Boston City Hall in Boston. This was completed in 1968. I mean, fair enough, fair enough. Habitat 67 in Montreal. So this would be Canada. I mean, that's just where exactly are you supposed to go within that? In terms of like which are meant to be houses, or I'm assuming apartments or flats. But yeah, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. It doesn't. How is that supposed to look appealing in any way, shape, or form? It looks like a bunch of blocks just being put together randomly, and then there you go. There's like a new housing apartment. I'm assuming it's supposed to be. Let me see. University graduate thesis and evolved into one of Canada's most recognizable brutalist structures. Its first design to ever be realized is the set of 354 interlocking prefabricated concrete units containing 158 one to four bedroom apartments, each with a roof garden, was originally presented at Montreal's 1967 World's Fair. Situated along the St. Lawrence River, the dramatic complex with its cubic modules that just jut out into the surrounding space proposed the idea of an urban village, quote unquote, with Safdie considered a more humane and organic alternative to traditional apartment living. Right. I need to ask, how in any way is that supposed to be humane, or what was it? Organic in any way, shape, or form? It just looks very not just this building, but all the other buildings around it. Like they just look very oppressive in nature. And I'll definitely cover this a little bit more with the Eastern Bloc or Eastern Europe, because I think those buildings look way more oppressive in nature. But how is that supposed to look humane or organic compared to any of the traditional architectures? Trellick Tower in London. This was completed in 1972, and that's one of the buildings we saw earlier. And it just looks awful. There's no any appealing to it whatsoever. Goldfinger once said, "Cities can become centers of civilization where men and women can live happy lives." Yet by 19, this was a quote, I think, from the film Goldfinger. Yet by 1972, when the UNIT-inspired Trellick Tower was erected as public housing, it was in the face of growing disillusion about similar tower block buildings, now revitalized after years of dereliction, I think you pronounce it, and petty crime that earned it the moniker Tower of Terror. The 332-foot high concrete block features two distinct yet connected buildings, separating elevators and stairways from the balconied apartments to maximize living space. This one here in Sao Paulo, the Brazilian Museum of Sculpture, completed in 1988. I mean, look at that, just looks really bad. And there's just no real soul to it whatsoever. It just looks unappealing. What to do is, let me see if I can come back to this real quick, and then I'll showcase some of the buildings you would see in Eastern Europe, which I think look way, way worse. But let me have a look at this. Where are my notes for that? I should have it here in a moment. Okay, let me see with this. Texture and Eastern Europe. And then there's another piece I'll showcase later on that I think perfectly cements why like brutalism or brutal architecture is not only linked to communism, but it's just very oppressive in nature. So here's especially a smart city. Daniel Doom, thank you very much for watching the show. Let me see. You had all sorts of people living in them, not just council tenants. Yeah, all sorts of people living in them, of course. Erno Goldfinger, Hungarian architect back in the day. Oh, right. So it's not a quote from the film Goldfinger. Right. Sorry, my bad. My bad for that, folks. Give me a market town or village over a city. Yeah, I agree, Woodlander. I agree. Let me see here. Let me just share the screen once again. Here is brutal architecture that's based in Eastern Europe. And again, just looks really like, I mean, what's even the point of this? Like, what is this supposed to be like about? It's almost to me like an upside down like pyramid. I really just don't understand like not only the appeal, but what exactly is the point of that exactly? Oh, hold on one second. I just received a donation. Just in case if it's this right here. Right, hold on a sec. Excellent. Well, I won't mention the person's name again, just in case if it's not like online name or anything like that at all. But for the gentleman who did donate £5 to me, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. Greatly appreciate that. Anyway, sorry, where was I? So yeah, this just it looks just awful. Like, what's even why design it like that? That's what I really don't get. There's way more uglier designs than this. Let me have a look here. And I mean, and the amount of cope here, like oh, stunning! Like it's not stunning at all. But let's have a look at this real quick. This is from Pinterest. Let's have a look at this at the moment here. Okay, so just examples of this. I mean, just look at that. That's awful. I don't want to sign in. I just want to have a look at these buildings, these absolute awful buildings like that. What is that supposed to be? And this one, strangely enough, is supposed to look like an Indian, or no, so not sorry, not an Indian. Sorry, an elephant. Which I mean, why? I really have no idea. Now this one, as it's showcased, I think this is based in Hong Kong. Not every building is as beautiful as the Palace of Versailles, or as it in Versailles. Let's have a look at this. Don't want to log in. I just want to read this. I mean, that just looks really awful. I'll see if I can find a better image of that because Pinterest is just being really awkward. So let me just move on from there. But we'll see if we can find more examples of these. Let me see. There's examples of buildings in Eastern Europe. I mean, like start communist architecture of Eastern Europe. Let's have a look at this. Pinterest again from. So let's see. To St. Petersburg. Yeah, that's just an example of that. I mean, just even then, I just sound like a massive art snob when it comes to this particular subject. But you could see what I mean. There's just no appeal to these whatsoever. It's just awful to look at, especially if it's based in like in a city urban environment. It just looks really bad. Like this one here, gallery of the brutalist architecture that shaped Poland's urban. I want to assume landscapes, right, or maybe area. But I mean, just look at that. Well, that's based in Poland. I mean, it just looks so. It just looks lifeless. It's just very oppressive. I think that might be the right word for it. Very oppressive in nature. Is there more of these? Oh, Jesus. Sorry to say the Lord's name in vain, but God, what's this? Mrs. Elfrida with the model of the name of the building there, estate in Warsaw. There's a close up to that. Maybe it's because I'm too close to it. Wait a minute. That might be it. Try that. I mean, even that right there, that just looks. It kind of reminds me of all the tower blocks near where I live. It just looks really. Just looks very unappealing to look at, to be honest. I mean, I know people might say, like, "Whoa, I mean, it's got color to it," but even then, it's like it's not going to help it, really, will it? Let me see here. I'm going to come out of there and see more of these buildings. Let's have this. Keep getting notifications on Telegram, but anyway. Is there more here? Like this one. I don't know why, but it just kind of reminds me of like a game of what's that game? Is it Jenga or something like that? I don't understand. I mean, it would be one thing if it was just a normal like rectangular type of building style, but this is it's just what's the point of having some of the building kind of stick out like that? It just looks like a bad case of Jenga. I think it's the name of that game where you put blocks together, you try to piece them out, and if they fall over, then you lose. You know, that sort of idea. But anyway, that's some examples. I mean, like, look at that. What even is that? 10 again, the amount of coping from these news outlets, like 10 beautiful brutalist buildings. But let's have a look at this for a moment. I don't know where this is based in, but again, you can just see just how unappealing this looks at the end of the day. But let's have a look at this article by the BBC, and then there's another article I'll have a look into in a moment here. 10 beautiful brutalist buildings. Let's have a look at this. I mean, okay, there's plants and trees next to it, but I mean, again, it still looks unappealing whatsoever. Impressive concrete structures, massive cope from around the world are collected in a new book, This Brutal World by Peter Chadwick. Jonathan Glancy chooses his favorites. Let's see here. The one based in Switzerland in 1961. I mean, that just looks really bad. Powerhouse in Shibuya-ku, Tokyo in Japan, 1966. I mean, I don't know about you, but when it's you know how like in Japan they have like those small cubic housing, or not housing, but small like cube sized like rooms you can hire. I'd rather live in that than live in something like this. I mean, that looks really unappealing. Orange County offices and courthouse in Goshen, New York in 1967. Very similar to that, the tower block. Oh no, sorry, I think. Oh, so that's in New York, and then this one here would be. That's in Japan. That building is in Japan. Well, that's just even worse. How are you supposed to fit people in that? Rugged and this 6-story house rises from a tiny plot of land measuring just 20 square mile. Built as a family home by the architect Takamitsu Azuma. Today, it is dwarfed by later buildings. Despite a floor area of just 65 square, it boasts a roof terrace, a carport, and carport, as well as a generous sense of space in a sequence of open and well-lit raw concrete rooms unfolding from an exposed concrete stair. Azuma described the tower house as a continual vertical room. This is brutalism realized with the economy of a Japanese haiku. All right then. Let me see. Yeah, that's the Trellick Tower in London. Right, that's the one I talked about earlier on. What the hell is that? Central de stuff. It's in Brazil. I know that much, right? It just looks like a spaceship. It looks like something you would see like a bad ship design from Star Trek or something like that, or maybe Star Wars. That just looks really unappealing. I mean, just look at that. Oh, that's awful. Let me see. This one's based in Georgia, 1975, I should say. Yeah, I mean, well, here's one from Cuba. This is the embassy of Russia in Cuba, funny enough. This is based in 1985. I mean, again, you can see that. This one's just almost fairly recent, 2008. This is in Spain and Madrid. That's Boston. We covered that already. So there we go. Just some examples of that. It just looks really awful. Now, what I want to do again, go back onto this and read out an article I found earlier on. No, it looks like something from a terrible 80s sci-fi film. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, it just looks like just a weird spaceship. But anyway, let's have a look at this. Brutal buildings, the architecture of Eastern Europe. Let's have a look at this from The Lonely Planet. Rory Herbert. Yeah, careful now. Anyway, let's have a look at this. Now, as I said, this article is from The Lonely Planet. This is about the brutal architecture in Eastern Europe. It does go a bit more in depth with that. So let's have a look at this. Made purely to depress and suppress the people. Exactly, English weather. Exactly that. Let's have a look at this. Maybe it's a bit too close with the screen. Oh, no, that's fine. 100% right. Fine. Ugly or visionary, an architectural period to forget or a legacy worth preserving. I think it is an architectural period easily to forget, but let's hear what these. I'm assuming they're leftists. We'll talk about this just now. Few building styles have made an impact or a region, or caused as much controversy as brutalist architecture in the former communist bloc. This was, after all, the architecture is synonymous with the obliteration of Bratislava's Jewish core and the closing down of Budapest's historic artist cafes. Eastern Europe's photogenic Baroque and neoclassical grandeur was overshadowed in a mere 45 years by a regime that used concrete functionalism as one of its most effective statement of intent. So basically, it just says it right there. The whole point of these designs was to replace not only the old classical, the photogenic Baroque and neoclassical looking buildings, but these buildings were designed to replace those old classical buildings. And again, it really comes to see the contrast between the two. Neoclassical or Baroque has a very distinct look, very beautiful, and a very rich design. Whereas you get to this, and it just looks very oppressive, very very inhuman. Which is funny because normally people who like this type of art style or type of architecture would say, "Oh, it's a very humanizing type of architecture." Which, I mean, I really fail to see that. What exactly is humane about this type of architecture to be, by any way stretch of the imagination? I have no idea, but apparently some people just like to cope very badly. But anyway, let me see this. But while grey high-rise tenants became the most exported image from behind the Iron Curtain, the brutalist buildings and monuments here are far from universally unsightly. Their otherworldly and striking designs are increasingly reasons to visit the area. I mean, who would want to visit that? Seriously. And then, of course, it goes into details about the buildings themselves. Let's have a look at this one. Like this, for example, Hungary's Communist Memento Park. No tour of the region's brutalist edifices, or you want to pronounce it, would be complete without a visit to Budapest's Memento Park. Here, more than 40 statues have been assembled, larger-than-life hallmarks of Hungary's stint under socialism. Stalin's immense plinth elevated boots give you an inkling of how preposterously proportionated his original 25-meter statue was before being toppled in the 1956 Hungarian Revolution. More bizarre yet is the Republic of Council's monument, a giant likeness of a worker in mid-run flag flying patriotically and fists angrily clenched against would-be enemies of the state. Comically oversized these statues may be, but they still convey how awe-inspiring they would have seemed in their heyday. So again, what I might have said earlier on, or I'm about to say now, but this is why I think brutalist architecture, at least after the British scene, if you want to call it that, definitely does have a tie when it comes to communism or socialism, especially when it comes to the Eastern Europe bloc. Is there more of these as examples? I wonder. In Soviet style. Eastern Europe's, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that. Eastern Europe's largest communist housing development. So that's the example of that here. There we go with that. So, is there more notes when it comes to the architecture side of things? I think there's not. No. Anyway, so that's to do with the brutalist architecture. So that's to be done with the first hour of the show, which is perfect. So overall, I mean, I know there's like an old saying when it comes to this type of movement or type of well, pretty much art and design in general, where it's the idea of well, art is very subjective. You know, people have their own favorite types of movement and all of that. If you like something, you like it. If you don't like something, you don't like it. Again, art is very subjective. But I think it comes into the idea when it comes to the brutalist architecture. Not only is it more based in communism, but it really goes to show just how bad that architecture really is. It's soulless, it's oppressive. It really, if you're somebody who lives in that area, whether it be Poland or Hungary, especially seeing those types of buildings, it really gives this sense of idea that you're basically worth nothing. You're worth absolutely your life is meaningless, and that's what these buildings, I think, definitely convey when it comes to the people living there. Again, compared to what we've seen earlier on the show, where you see Baroque types of architecture and all of that. Anyway, second hour of show. Chief's left side will be lit up. I know it's quite dark in this side here, but might be ideal for like a future Halloween episode. But anyway, so I'll move away from the architecture side of things and move right into modern art. Well, in this case, all of the pretentious stuff you see today. So I've showcased earlier on my favorite art movement being the Renaissance, and I do have an appreciation for the Baroque side of things as well. But I want to showcase everything that is wrong with modern day art. And what I want to showcase firstly is a video. Now, this video is, I think, perfectly sums up everything that is wrong with modern art and the absolute pretentiousness of it all. So let me just see if I can find this video. First of all, I think you could easily find it on YouTube. The name of the video is, well, it's not the name of the video, but what I would call it is Butter Dance. Now, you maybe scratch your head and thinking, wait a minute, like why the hell would you call something Butter Dance or like, dance bar or something like that? But I'll get to this. I'll showcase what I mean in a moment here. Let me see if I can find the actual video in question. Yeah, Butter Dance. Yeah, this is what I mean. This is it's it's not a long video, but yeah, I'll show you what I mean with this. So hopefully you might are you saving on the energy belt? No, it's just because I thought having the torch in front of me might be better lighting with that, because without that, the whole room is completely dark, especially at this point in time of the day. So, but yeah. Anyway, let me showcase what I mean by pretentious art nowadays, especially when it comes to performance art. So here's a video called Butter Dance, and it's the title speaks for itself, and it's it's pretty cringe. So we'll watch this together, and then we'll see what this at the moment. So 6 minutes and 10 seconds long. This was made in June 5th, 2010, so quite a long time ago. Let me just go back onto here. Lilith catalog launch performances by Tsuneko Taneuchi. I think the woman in this video is actually Melati I can't pronounce the name. Suryo Darmo. I think it's the name of the performer. But anyway, we'll watch this together. So just as cringy, be prepared. So 3, 2, 1. And we'll see what I mean by pretentious modern art. So we have, I think the purpose of this dance, just before we get any further, is supposed to be against fat shaming or something to that effect. I'll read the description of it later, slightly after this, but this is one video. There's another one I'll showcase in a minute, but what you have here is a plus-sized woman, or maybe a Jabba the Hutt-sized woman, if you want to call her that, with high heels on, and right there is blocks of butter, and she's going to perform a dance on the butter. So you could see how well it's going to turn out, but let's have a look at this together. So. And remember, folks, this is supposed to be art, and all of that. What even makes it funnier, by the way, is that this dance is meant to be taken dead serious. Like, there's no hint of irony or any humor to it whatsoever. This is supposed to be taken 100% seriously. Even the drums in the background, like. That sure is how, like, a way of wasting butter. I mean, I'm sure no other nation, especially with like hungry countries, might want to use that, like Africa. But she fell over. Oh, that's not the only time she falls over. But you just see it in her face, like. You see the fear in her eyes. She's like, oh no. But she falls more and more throughout the video, but it gets a lot more funnier. So let's just see this. Like, it's just so absurd. It's like something you would see in like a Monty Python sketch. It was like as a way of making fun of stuff like this. But no, this is 100% real. There's no any irony to it whatsoever. This is 100% taken deadly serious. I'm sorry, seeing her face again. It's about maybe like this part here. She's like, I may fall, but I get back up again. Like, come on. I mean, I try to figure out like what exactly is the purpose of this. Like, what is it supposed to convey? Or some of you might be wondering that yourselves. Which I mean, I don't blame you. This is my art. Oh shoot! Sorry, that face right there. Ooh. Ah, oh man. What's this part here? Just skip a little bit. I think she's breathing heavily. Oh. Of course, she takes her shoes off and I think leaves them there, which I mean, I don't know what that would signify, but of course, yeah, they all sort of flying like fucking seals. Oh, that was good art. I wonder if there's a description about the clip. Wait a minute. If I can read this just real quick. Another strange but wonderful cringe. This one takes some time to fully let the cringe settle in. I like how artistic this video is. Think of the bar as a metaphor for her dignity. That's funny. Yeah. Bar represents life. The more time passes, the more slippery bar gets, thus harder and harder falls. Less control, more energy needed for balance. Every fall you get out, every fall you get back up and try to move on. But as falls gets harder, it is harder to get up. It's harder to find the will and mental strength to get up. Eventually, due to the nature of people, you simply give up. You surrender to slippery life, which I think is a representation of death. I mean, that's retarded. Okay, that's just absolutely retarded. I'm sorry, but it just comes. I can't take that seriously. I don't want to play the video here. This was about 10 minutes long, but let me see if I can read the description of this. Parasite. That's quite funny. That Parasite Art Space and Spring Workshop are pleased to invite you to a special performance program in the framework of the exhibition. Typing Tiango, I think I pronounced it right, a history of possible encounters. Let me see, in New York on view at Parasite till August 28th. Taking place on August 26th, Sunday at Spring Workshop, and August 28th, Tuesday at Parasite Art Space. The program brings together some of the most influential performers, artists, and choreographers of today, such as Xavier Leroy. Let's see. Oh, I think that might be the woman in question. The woman who we watched just now is from Indonesia. Melati Suryo Darmo. The program elaborates on certain issues articulated by the exhibition, such as the use of the body as a terrain for artistic practice and the influence of the biographical in the formation of an artist's vernacular. All right, then. So it's basically just pretentious bullshit. And I'm sure there's actually more examples of these. So there's that woman there. I think I'll play this for a bit. Because again, the bar dance is basically exactly the same idea. So let's have a look at this. Her other performance called "I Love You." Again, watch a little bit of it, and then we'll move on from there. So But again, this is just another example of the same woman, but with her art performances, if you will. So there's her on the floor, or kneeling on the floor. She's got a large piece of glass behind her.
Well, actually, we know each other, Marina and me, since I was her student. I was in her class in 1997 in Braunschweig. And then of course, she is the one who's very, to me, is very important teacher and helped me um, developing performance and especially the practice of performance art. She's one of the most influencing teachers in my practice, actually.
Mhm.
And so she invited me 3 months or 4 months ago to be part of this event, and of course I'm very happy. By chance, I had to be in Istanbul because most of the time now I spend my life in Indonesia, which is far away from here.
So I wonder, like, why? I mean, of course, she has a bit of like an English to her, but don't know if she came to America legally or illegally. But it kind of makes you wonder, like, why do this type of performance in America and not in Indonesia? I kind of have a feeling that Indonesia, that maybe she might get completely laughed at if she were to do a performance like that, but I don't know. So I'm not really too familiar with Indonesia myself. So, but I just think it's a bit weird how she would do this in America than in Indonesia. But I don't know, that's just me with that. So
But it was a good coincidence that I was in Istanbul until yesterday, and so it's not far to come to Basel. It's very good coincidence. But yeah, Marina and we have been knowing each other since long time ago, and she's been following my work and my processes, and we are still very much in connection. Yeah.
well, this is what I mean. Like, there's just no purpose. Like, it's just meaningless when it comes to modern art. Like, what exactly is this supposed to represent? Is it like the big glass is like something's like blocking her or some shit? Like, I don't, I don't understand whatsoever. I mean, this just kind of comes off as something that would waste a lot of people's times. Like, when it comes to this performance art. Okay, maybe move on from that because this is just. Wait, she like lying on the ground. Oh, like why? Oh, so is she? So she says "I love you," but is she saying it like to herself? Because the big glass, you can see a reflection of yourself. So is she basically confirming she's a first class fucking narcissist? I mean, not really much of a surprise there then. Yeah, we'll just maybe move on from there. But again, you can kind of see examples of like perf- performance artists and all of that. It's just it's uh it's just cringe, isn't it? Really just cringe. I mean, there's a lot more examples of that, but that one I just thought was just really funny, especially the butter dance. I thought I maybe showcase that as an example of what exactly is really wrong with modern art regarding to that. So let me have a look and see if there's any more performance art as other examples of this. And then I'll move on to something some of you might be familiar with when it comes to the art world, but let's have a look at this real quick. Oh, excuse me. How evil humans really are. Right, okay, man. It's really just showcasing like other performance arts and all of that. I think maybe I'll move on from there with what's this? Hold on a minute here. There's something that kind of came to my attention with that. Wait. Last Supper performance. What the hell is this? Hold on a minute. I'll show you guys in a minute here of what I mean. This is another example of these performance arts, if you will. This one is on the next Mood of the Nation, Chief Moody performs his interpretation of the bar dance with his haggis, but with haggis. Sounds like a great idea, Roger. That sounds like well, I would say it's a great idea, but the problem with that is that I have dignity, I guess you could say, but I wouldn't do anything with that at all. So might be more interesting if the squashy was was nude. I mean, okay. let's have a look at this. This art performance is called The Last Supper, and I hope it's nothing to do with Christianity or like Jesus or anything like that at all. But again, it's only 3 minutes long, but let's have a look at this. So yeah, it's already playing. Here we go. All right, so what do we have here? So this is The Last Supper performance art. There's a lot of grapes, a lot of wine. Let me get the big reveal. Oh, of course, it's a woman, of course. Okay. I'm kind of seeing like a running pattern here with these types of performance artists. It seems like that mostly are women who I think have severe daddy issues, but that's that's what I think. Okay, and you've seen a lot of people watching it just kind of being creeped out. They're just like, right, what is this supposed to be about? Okay, she's eating. I don't know, like. I swear to God, I hope she doesn't like puke or anything like that at all. Because that's another thing when it comes to these art performances or a performance art, if you want to call it that. Most of the people who perform them either puke or piss or they shit. And again, most of them consist of women, by the way, which I don't understand the purpose of that. I think people, I think even Rory Herbert said it best in the chat. This type of art is people should call it degenerate art. Oh, she's had enough. Oh no. Wait, what was the purpose of that? Did anyone catch what that piece was supposed to be about? Because I sure as hell didn't. Check the comments for more info on the meaning, but here is the explanation. This performance was my final project of first semester, fourth year of my bachelor's. What a waste of fucking time, but okay. I was doing lots of work about extravagance, emotion states of discomfort, and exploring performance art as a medium. Lots of my work takes symbolism from religion and art history, so I used the idea of the Last Supper of Christ. Of course, it's going to be about fucking. Of course, it will be about that as a sacrifice of his being for others. I used lush fruit and food to show the extravagance and lust of the fine things like I had done earlier in my semester. The dance costume was a symbol of nakedness physically and emotionally. I wanted to present myself as a cooked, prepared version of myself and give off myself to my professors who refused my attempts at self-sacrifice. The idea was about the inevitable disappointment we face when we give of ourselves emotionally over and over until there is nothing left. At the same time, we often feed and gorge ourselves on the need to be accepted. There is enough new performance art out there. I didn't want to add to it. Okay, so then, all right. The overeating was also a response to my health conditions like IBS. Eating doesn't bring me joy. Okay, so let me translate that from pretentious to common sense. So what I think she's trying to say is she's a pretentious douchebag who thinks very highly of herself and, of course, express her pretentiousness through her art, if you want to call it that. So, all right, fair enough, I suppose. It's Ripley. Soon an alien will burst from her chest. Yeah, I definitely would imagine that. It kind of comes off as a little bit satanic, but anyway. So I want to also mention other stuff in regards to, I'll say, modern art. Some of you might have seen this already, or maybe have heard of it. Let me bring this up at the moment as examples of modern art being as a way of kind of mocking a lot of the classic stuff we've seen already. But some of you who know your art and all of that might remember this. It's called Piss Christ by Andres Serrano. Let's have a look at this together. So some of you might have seen this, maybe not, but we'll have a look at this together at the moment here with that. This is a quote from the artist here. I distrust anyone with a message. The best artistic intentions are usually cloaked in mysteries and contradictions. It wouldn't be interesting for me if the art were not loaded in some way. Introduction. Awash in a vivid red-yellow glow stands a crucified Jesus, a statuette submerged in a jar of urine and photographed. Or the original title of the piece was called Immersion, or Piss Christ, as people would normally call it. Brought American artist and photographer Andres Serrano unprecedented infamy. In this edition of blah, 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 look at this together. The artist. Andres Serrano is an American artist born in 1950 in New York. He studied art, specifically photography, at the Brooklyn Museum from 1967 to 1969. He later acknowledged that he worked as a drug dealer and struggled with substance abuse in the 1970s. While in New York City, he was able to return to his photography practice by the early 1980s and took an interest in working with figurative art. His work evoked and explored the religious upbringing he experienced in his Hispanic Roman Catholic childhood home. He also dove deeply into an exploration of how he could use fluids in his work, milk, but also infamously urine, blood, and semen. This series led to the creation of Immersion or Piss Christ. So again, another example of degenerate art, if you want to call it that, the artwork. Immersion by Andres Serrano depicts a small plastic crucifix statue submerged in a bright red yellow liquid, which, due to the title of the work and the testimony of the artist, we know to be Serrano's own urine. The photograph, created in 1987, was part of a larger series exploring immersions and classic iconography. 2 years prior, Serrano had created Blood Cross, a photograph of a plexiglass cross filled with cow's blood and slightly leaking to look as if the figure itself is bleeding. Immersion, or Piss Christ, is deeply saturated, glossy, and at first glance it is impossible to discern that the central medium of the work's creation could be a bodily fluid. Serrano himself had proclaimed that the work is not intended to be an overt political statement. Then why would you put a cross in the jar and then piss on it? Like, how is that not maybe a political statement? Okay, on religion, but rather that he prefers the work remains ambiguous. How is it supposed to be ambiguous? It's a jar with the cross with Jesus on the cross, and it has urine inside it. Like, how else am I supposed to look at it? Like, this just comes off as you either mocking the religion or just detesting the religion. Like, how am I supposed to look at it exactly? How is that supposed to be ambiguous? Despite this desire for ambiguity, Serrano has also alluded to being interested in the over-commercialization and cheapening of Christian iconography in contemporary culture. As a lifelong Christian himself, he denounces the idea that he intended to create a blasphemous piece, but rather that it was a personal and serious work of art. Right, so in that case, how then was it that it was funded by the National Endowment for the Arts, or the NEA? I'll get to that in a moment here with his article. Let me see if I can get this Washington Post article up here in a moment and see with that. Copy and then paste it here. Have a look at this. Behind the Right's loathing of the NEA, two despicable exhibits almost 30 years ago. So one of them being Piss Christ and the other being, what's it called? The Maplethorpe exhibit. So this was a Trump during the Trump's administration back in 2017. But President Trump's proposed budget calls for a complete elimination of the National Endowment for the Arts, much to the delight of many conservatives, particularly those old enough to remember when the battle against the NEA became a crusade. Who will tell you with anger unabated after nearly 30 years about the Maplethorpe exhibit and the photo called Piss Christ. The year was 1989. The Right's effort to defund the NEA, founded as part of President Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, was well underway, but mostly as a spending issue, something to be cut, disliked by the administration of Ronald Reagan, but not necessarily loathed. In the 1980s, the NEA was seen as little more than an irritant and not an agent for political or social change, Reagan biographer Craig Shirley told the Washington Post. After all, Shirley said Reagan was a patron of the arts and a former actor and president of the Screen Actors Guild. Eventually, he merely proposed cuts to the agency budget. This is a quote. The transition team really didn't want to defund it. W. Barnabas McHenry, vice chairman of the Presidential Task Force of the Arts and Humanities under Reagan, told the New York Times in 1988. So we put a lot of people on the task force like Charlton Heston and Adolph Kurz, who were close to the president, and we all thought that the task force did finally persuade him that it would be a terrible thing to stop the federal support. In the 1980s, the economy is in bad shape, the military is in bad shape, the Soviet Union is looming. So when people wake up in the morning, they're not thinking of the NEA and art. They think is obscene. They're thinking about getting the job. They're thinking about the potential of World War III. The end of the 80s, however, was a time of relative peace, which Shirley said is when people turn their eyes to something like the NEA. Now, the NEA, for those who don't know, or the National Endowment for the Arts, is basically a very leftist arts organization or agency. that has a lot of people involved, mainly people who are either non-white, people who are white but they're very, very leftist and all of that, and of course people who are very Jewish in regards to that. Of course, no surprise there. Even other art institutes, like say the National Gallery of Arts, there's a lot of Jewish people who run that as well. So there's no really much of a surprise that the NEA, or the National Endowment for the Arts, not only funded both Piss Christ, but it would also funded the Maplethorpe exhibition. Some of you might be wondering, what exactly is the Maplethorpe exhibition? Well, again, it's all part of the degenerate art, if people want to call it that. I'll show you guys this as an example. Let me see here. This is just an example of the Maplethorpe exhibition. So you got stuff like this. Let me get to this here. That's part of the Maplethorpe exhibitions. So someone in a gimp suit. I don't know why or the purpose of that, but behind it, pentagrams, you can see, again, so edgy, I guess you want to call it that, but perfect moment with that. But example after example. I mean, there's a lot of examples of this. Again, they were very controversial, especially when it comes to the Piss Christ painting that came out. Was there more stuff? I guess I could definitely showcase, if I can go back onto here real quick, what I mean, who's involved with both of these institutes. Let me see if I can find. Yeah, this is exactly what I need. Right, let's see here. If I get to this here real quick. Okay, so copy and then paste it here. And then if I can get to this. We'll start off with the National Endowment for the Arts. So, of course, even the front page, I'll show you this in a moment. Let's have a look at this. Klaus Sachs. Oh dear. Anyway, here's an example of the National Endowment for the Arts. I think this right here perfectly sums up this institution right here. Students from Chinhill High School, the largest high school within the Navajo nation in Arizona. Okay, participating in the Native American Composer Apprentice Project program. So I mean, there you go. They're mainly focusing on, like, say, promoting the woke agenda, of course, anti-whiteism and all of that, you name it. So let's have a look into what is the NEA as an example. So when I first started, the National Endowment for the Arts, or the NEA for short, established in Congress in 1965, is an independent federal agency that is the largest funder of the arts and arts education in communities nationwide, and a catalyst of public and private support for the arts. By advancing equitable opportunities for the arts and participation and practice, the NEA fosters and sustains an environment in which the arts benefit everyone in the United States. Well, everyone, they'll say nowadays, possibly, except mainly white people, because they have privilege and all of that. So let me show you all the people involved at this current time with the NEA. I'll start off with the chairs page. So this is the chairman, or the chairwoman, if you want to call it that, Dr. Maria Rosario Jackson. She was only appointed as a chairman or chairwoman of NEA, I think it was last year, if I'm not mistaken. And then, of course, they have a podcast with that. But let's have a look at the leaderships and staff. So there's quite a number of people. Let me see. I don't know if I have any like photographs of these people, but you can see with the names, of course, of people involved. Currently speaking with the NEA, so Stephanie Scott, Ascala Sisk, Ra Joy, Jennifer Chang, Kristen Gant, Kim Jefferson, Bill Wiggins. You'll come across some Jewish people involved. Michael Shivitz, Let me see. There's a number of people involved. So, like I said, there's a lot of people involved being non-whites or white people, but very leftist, and of course, Jewish people being involved. So, Wingas, Fishman, let's see, Stolars, Choi, Berger, or Brenna Berger, or Berger, Berger probably. Let's see, Garfinkel or Mindy Garfinkel. There you go. Gilchrist, Hall, Harley. Yep. There's plenty of examples of people involved with this institution or agency, if you want to call it that. Weismar, Hudson, Stalls, Sheriff, Badenberg, Edwards, Flint, Miller, Mansfield. Yep, you name it. Again, there's so many other examples, but I also want to showcase another example here from the National Gallery of Art. So you will notice, by the way, that a lot of these art institutions have a lot of involvement with like I said, either non-whites or Jewish people, and you see these as examples. So Mitchell P. Rails, David M. Rubenstein, Laura Brisen, I think you want to pronounce it, Aaron Walker, Dr. K1 Fieldman, examples after example, Sheila McDaniel, E. Carmen Ramos, Kate Haw, Stephen Nelson, Eric L. Motley, William W. McClure. There we go. It's other examples of that. So, and even what I've also noticed earlier on was that there seems to be a lot of money laundering involved when it comes to the art field. And I have an article here, which I'll cover this as the last thing to cover, and then we'll see if we can move on from there, or maybe we can end the show. But just to give you an idea with that, folks, all this stuff when it comes to modern art and everything we've seen tonight, definitely is just a prime example. Not only they're all completely meaningless, but they're all just part of a money laundering scheme. I have a few chores to do. Catch you all later. Interested in live, Chief. Bye for now. Bye, chat. Thank you very much for stopping by, Kate. Thank you very much. Let's have a look at this. So, money laundering within the art world. So, let's have a look at this. How money laundering works in the art world. Don't know why it's coming up like this, but let me see if I can sort that. There we go. Works of art have long been identified and sometimes even romanticized as ideal ways for racketeers for launder money. There's a thread of logic here. The art world typically accommodates those that want to anonymously buy high-dollar paintings, and on top of that, the industry allows large cash deals for those looking to launder money. It's difficult to conjure up a more attractive set of circumstances than those. There also seems to be plenty of instances where art has played a role in the act of money laundering. Consider that when the Mexican government passed a law in the early 2010s to require more information about buyers and how much cash could be spent on a single piece of art, the market cratered a sales dipped 70% in less than a year. Many believe that this was because Mexican cartel rings had previously been the biggest buyer in the market. I mean, even just look at that. Hannibal from 1982 was sold in that. I mean, there's a lot of pentagram symbols. Again, another example of modern art being degenerate art. And it's really no surprise here of why money laundering would definitely be involved. Because, I mean, if anyone actually takes this seriously, then they're a complete idiot. And I think the people who are behind these institutions who actually put money for these art pieces are not only mocking classic art, but they're also like laughing at the faces of people who actually take this stuff fucking seriously. So how does one launder money in the art world? The Globe and Mail reports that some of the cases are very straightforward. Let's suppose someone has $10 million on hand. They could buy a Picasso at an auction in, say, Geneva and have the painting immediately moved to storage at a free port or a high security storage space near the airport. The painting could be then anonymously sold without any ever movement an inch, and the new buyer would have it retrieved from the same free port. Suddenly, the original buyer turned seller has money from what is considered a legitimate business deal. The Economist estimated in 2013 that the Geneva free port might hold $100 billion worth of US art sitting tucked away in a space that also functions as a tax haven. So, I mean, there you go. Then there's the case of international terrorism, where bands like ISIS have been noted for their laundering of cultural antiques, whereas much of the area that ISIS controlled has been taken over by government-backed forces. It is reported that the group still controls millions of dollars and possibly hundreds of millions, thanks in large part of a robust antiques trade. So I mean, there's a lot of that involved. Definitely a lot of that involved. Especially, I would imagine a lot of corruption involved with this as well. But anyway, if you want to have a read further into it yourselves, I'll put that in the chat just now. So there we go. If a crap sculpture is filled with drugs, etc. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at that. In fact, I remember something like this. I came across this when I once played a game like a long time ago for the PS2 called The Getaway. And there's a mission where in that game, I think it's the third mission overall, where you have to go into like an art gallery that's run by what's the Chinese mafia? I think the Triad, I think that they're called. And in the basement, there's like a statue, like a Chinese soldier or whatever, and it's got like a kilo of heroin within it. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that's still going on, not just back then, but still going on today when it comes to money laundering or even drug trafficking. But yeah, so there we go. If you want to read more of it yourself in the articles in the chat just now with that. So I'm going to end the show a bit early than expected. I mean, I'm just about approaching 2 hours into that anyway. So, but yeah, that will come to the end of tonight's show with that. Yeah, triads. Yeah, that definitely the triads. Right, perfect. So yeah, that will come the end of tonight's episode. So I hope everyone enjoyed tonight's episode. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel and please like the stream if you can. If you enjoy the show and want to support me financially when it comes to future episodes and maybe future episodes in terms of equipment and all of that, you could definitely send in donations through Coffee, which is in the pinned message, or even PayPal directly, which is in the description down below. Please, again, don't feel obligated. You have to donate. If you want to donate, that's great. I appreciate your kind generosity. If not, then I can. That's understandable. I appreciate you guys watching the show, regardless if you donate or not with that. So, but yeah, that's going to be it. I will be back on Thursday at 7 p.m., maybe 7:30, depending on what time I finish work and what I'm doing afterwards, if it needs to be held back or anything like that at all. And of course, I'll be back on Sunday, of course. And yeah, that's going to be it. So I wonder what song I'm going to end the show on. Hopefully, people enjoyed that. Maybe a bit different than what I normally do with the other episodes, but if there's anything else, maybe culture or arts or anything like that at all, maybe you guys want me to talk about in future episodes, maybe feel free to leave a comment in my Telegram page, and then maybe I'll have a look into that and see from there. Because definitely this will not be the first and only time. I'll definitely want to do more shows like in this type of style, if you will. So yeah, that's going to be that. Trying to think what song to play us out with. Yeah, I might as well. All right. Excellent. So that's going to be that in this case here. Also, before I leave, of course, as I mentioned at the start of the show, tomorrow I will be a guest on PA Talk tomorrow at 9 p.m. for episode 52 of PA Talk. It will be myself. I am assuming Cyborg and Mean Peen will be on the show, so I can't wait for that. Of course, I'm sure that they'll post something on Telegram later on. I'll post that as well. So yeah, definitely check out tomorrow's PA Talk episode. And with that, I'll be back on Thursday at 7, maybe 7:30 p.m. I'll give you guys an update with that as well. and then we'll see from there. So again, thank you all so much for tuning into tonight's episode. I know it's a bit of a bizarre one because again, I don't normally stream on a Tuesday, but again, I was just covering for Jodie K tonight because again, she needed to have that break. Well deserved to have that break. So I don't know if it's going to be just for tonight or maybe next week, but I'll keep you guys updated with that as well, and maybe Jodie might update with that as well. So anyway, that being said, thank you all very much for watching. This is Chief Moody signing out. You have been watching the Mood of the Nation podcast, and I will see you all in the next episode, of course. Thank you. Take care, stay safe, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening. I'll see you all next time. Take care and good night. Thank you.
Love.